Hey everybody, what's up? Kevin here from the My Song of the Day Rock 2000 Today YouTube channel. And today I'm going to be going over how I discovered Italian Metalcore and why I think the genre is so good. So before we get started, please follow My Song of the Day Rock 2000 Today on social media channels like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. On all three pages, you will get the 30-second Song of the Day preview for you to expand your knowledge of rock and metal music from the year 2000 up till today, especially the new stuff coming out. You'll get a chance to talk to us, get to know anytime anything gets released. We ask you a bunch of different questions to engage with you. We also have Instagram TV videos or IGTV videos coming out every single Tuesday. It's a behind-the-scenes look at what's going to be happening with our channel and our page and everything like that. And our Instagram live streams every single Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Central. It's an hour we just kind of have fun, talk about whatever, and go from there. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel because we put out videos every single Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central, sometimes some Monday ones, depending on what we have. We're doing album reviews. The Kevin Figures Out series where I look at a band that I don't really know that much about and figure out if I like them or not. These videos where I answer questions, top 10 videos, we do all of that. And also on this page is where the Chord Progression Podcast lives on YouTube. Now, the Chord Progression Podcast is our very own podcast where we are going with the underground bands of the rock and metal scene and helping them unearth or basically shine a light on them so they can help get grown bigger and bigger and bigger and become the biggest bands by the end of the decade. You can find the podcast here on YouTube where you can watch the interviews, or you can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play. Links in the description below for everything, but let's get to the video. So when it comes to this video, first thing we're going through is a little bit of a background on how I discovered the genre in general and how I really got connected with it overall, so to give you some context on why I really like it. Then I'm going to go through 5 bands that I found that really resonate well with the Italian metalcore scene and tell you why they are so good and so unique. Then I'm going to wrap it all up and tell you why I think, overall, again, why they're unique and how they can go forward and keep growing as the great bands they are. So let's just get on into it. So how did I discover Italian Metalcore? Well, this is back in February of 2020 where one of my best friends, Chris, told me about this band, Stain the Canvas, that actually contacted him on social media telling him to check out their new album, God Made Hell. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. He sent it to me, I listened to it, and I was absolutely blown away by it. So I decided, you know what, let's listen to this more, let's really get into it. And I decided, you know what, on a whim, let's reach out to this band and ask them for a podcast interview. Their manager, Elyne, ended up messaging me back and we were able to set up an interview. Unfortunately, our first one had to get rescheduled because I think there was something on their end, plus the night beforehand, I got food poisoning, so there was no way I was going to be able to do it that day. However, we rescheduled it for a week later and everything went off as planned and it was fantastic. I got to learn a lot more about the band. And then Adam even said, hey, I've got another band you might want to check out that was said on the podcast called Eline. I'm like, okay, let's go there. So I was able to interview with Eline for the Chord Progression Podcast, listen to their stuff, and it was different than Stain the Canvases, but it was just as good. I sent off to my buddy Chris, and my buddy Chris absolutely loved it. Now with a couple other bands that are going to be on this list and a couple other Italian metalcore bands that I found them through a lot of different ways. Either they've been liking our Instagram content, liking our Twitter content, that kind of stuff, and I've been able to find out them, or they're under the Adam Ollie umbrella with Ollie Entertainment, or I've been able to just, randomly come across them on Instagram and just listen to their stuff, or they've contacted me. I found out a lot of these bands in a lot of different ways, so enough with that. Let's just start talking about them, shall we? So the first Italian metalcore band that I ended up finding was Stain the Canvas, like I said earlier, in February 2020. This was right around the time when metalcore had cemented itself as one of my favorite genres of all time. So this was the perfect time for them to come around to, hit my ears. So how would I describe their music? I describe their music as more of like an emo with theatrical metalcore style in it. Kind of like if Bring Me the Horizon kept going down that metalcore route after Sempiternal. And if you really take a look at the comments on the video for Hell Made Me on YouTube, I mean, the masses agree that is exactly what they kind of think of it and think it sounds like, and so do I. So taking a look at the different characteristics, what I meant in there, when I look at the emo characteristics of it, you really have to take a look at the look of the guys, especially lead singer Brian with his incredible emo haircut, and then you just take a look at the overall lyrical content and overall flow of the music. You really do get that emo feel overall. When you take a look at the metalcore aspect of it, they do hit incredibly hard on the instrumentation. They do go rapid, they do play with a more of a down-tuned style of it, and it really does work out well. But what I do have to point out in this aspect is Brian's vocals, because his unclean vocals are absolutely insane. They are incredibly unique because they have this incredibly nasty snarl to them, which just amps up so many different aspects of the music, especially the harder instrumentation. It's just the perfect mixture overall. And then take a look at theatrical aspects. There are some more melodic senses to it that really make it feel more epic, but the use of Latin chanting, especially in the background of some of these songs, make these songs really feel like you're in an action movie. It is so damn cool. So take a look at a couple of songs from them. One is called Fear from Nowhere, where it opens up with this incredibly hard snarl from Brian, and then you have this hard metalcore sound throughout the whole entire thing. And the theatrical aspect in this one is added through the chanting vocal style from the background vocals that are clean from the rest of the band. It is awesome, and it hits so dang hard. This is probably my favorite song from the band overall. Now going to Hell Made Me, and this is another one where if you take a look at it, it's going to be a metalcore song. It has a little bit more of a slower pace, that's not like Fear from Nowhere did, but that really adds to the whole entire theatrical aspect to it with the certain flow that you're going with, the emo theatrical flow. And listening to the chanting in the chorus from the rest of the guys, my god, that just amp up everything in more of the theatrical terms. But Brian's vocals really show range on this one from his unclean style, where it's a little bit more of the less of a snarl, a little bit cleaner. But then when you go with the super duper unclean snarl, it just hits so dang hard, and it just is this perfect blend of that emo metalcore style mixed with some theatrics that really comes from the rest of the band and not from that outside source. This song ended up making it on my Metalcore Madness playlist because I love to listen to this song, especially in the gym. It is fantastic to listen to. Taking a look at a song like a God, it's a lot slower, a lot lighter in comparison to some of the other songs, but it keeps that brutal, heavy pace, especially with the drumming from Alessandro. You're definitely going to get that aspect of range from Brian's unclean vocals, where you're going to get that healthy mixture of the super duper nasty snarl and more of the unclean vocal style as well. The mixture there is really good, but this is where that Latin theatrical backing really comes in, because they have a lot of Latin chanting in this, and it makes it just sound incredibly epic, like you're literally either in an action movie or in a video game. The mixture in there is so well done, I can't get enough of it. Overall, out of all the bands I'm going to talk about, Stain the Canvas is probably my favorite one overall, especially with that emo metalcore sound. I absolutely love how they work with it. The pacing is great, the theatrical aspect behind it is incredible, and the snarls from Brian are unlike anything I have ever heard, and it just mixed so well together. I did get to do a podcast episode with their drummer Alessandro and with their guitarist Ricardo, and the link in the description below for that, you can figure out how we got in touch with that band and how everything got brought to the fold with them and how everything got made and how this sound came together. I do plan on going over to Italy and to Europe once COVID-19 pandemic is over, and this is a band I'm guaranteeing I'm going to get to see because I want to see these guys play live. The second band I'm going to talk about now is the band that I ended up getting to do a podcast with after Stain the Camp, because Adam Owley ended up getting me connected with them, and that is Eline. When taking a look at Eline's music, they're a little bit different than the rest of the bunch, and that's because they do focus on that metalcore aspect, but their bass sound is in alternative metalcore. And what I mean by that is when you take a listen to it, it's not going to have that heavy, intense driving feel in metalcore as you would normally expect. They're going to end up mixing a lot of different sounds in there. Yes, you are going to get that heavy impact sound, but you're going to get a couple of different more like metal sounds, maybe some hard rock sounds in there. You're going to get a big mixture in there, and on their 2020 album, Art of Being Human, you're definitely going to feel that into the fold. What stands out the most about Eline is their lead vocalist, Daniel, and when I listen to his vocal range, it is one of the most impressive vocal range I've ever heard. When he goes with his unclean screams and unclean vocals in this, he sounds a lot like Tim Lambesis from As I Lay Dying, so you're going to get this intense, deep, unclean vocal. But when he sings clean, he reminds me a lot of Miles Kennedy from Alter Bridge. So where the amazement comes in that is you have a vocalist that has such a wide range between different sounds, especially clean and unclean. You're able to work with that instrumentation so much, you're able to experiment so much more. And off that experimentation, you're able to transition between different parts of the song with relative ease because his vocal power and range is able to let you do that. Daniel's vocals are absolutely incredible, and it is Eline's strength to use those, and by God, they do. The first song I'm going to take a listen to is Light It Up, and when you take a listen to Light It Up, you're going to get this feeling like that alternative metalcore style is definitely in, because the instrumentation is harder, but it has this flow and this overall tone that feels like an alter bridge song. And when Daniel goes with those primarily clean vocals throughout most of the song, it really does work out well to create this really good alternative metalcore hard rock kind of feel. When you go to the second verse though, he lets the unclean vocals flow and you really get this harder metalcore style, and the transitions work really well in between. This is a really well constructed song, and having Aaron Pauley from Of Mice and Men's vocals featured in this in the bridge, you can see the power that Daniel's vocals really show here. Just the contrast between their styles of clean vocals really does shine brightly and shows how powerful a band Eline is. Going to Sweet Eternity, I like this one because the intro gives you this really wacky and more horror feel, kind of like Ice Nine Kills Us. But then when you get into the first verse, you kind of get more of that metalcore sound, especially from the harder drumming. But then you're going to get a lighter sound from the rest of the instrumentation as well, so you can definitely get that alternative metalcore sound where it's lighter, but it has that faster pace to it. And Daniel's vocals are rather clean on this aspect. Once you transition the pre-chorus though, you're definitely going to get that full-on metalcore feel where the guitars get harder, the drums stay consistently fast-paced, and Daniel goes that unclean style, and it just works out incredibly well. Plus, you also get a mixture of this hard rock synth, especially in the chorus, and it just creates this great sounding hard rock sound, kind of like Alter Bridge. But then you get this metalcore to the bone feel in the second verse. I'm like, this is a great mixture of that hard rock meets that like horrorcore kind of style. Just the mixture that they're able to pull off here is amazing. Last song I'm going to talk about is Memento Vivere, and why I like this song is because this is, when you take a look at a song, this is a very classic Eline song if you really take a look at the rest of the album up to this point. However, where this one really stands out is because they add a piano in there, and that just adds such another dimension to their music overall. It just shows how powerful this band is and how much they can contort their sound to really mix in so many different sounds in there. But still sound incredible overall. Overall, I found Eline to be a band that perfectly toes that line between alternative metal, metalcore, and hard rock all at the same time. And they're really able to do this because of Daniel's vocal range and how they're able to mix in different instrumentation styles with it, and how they're able to transition it so easily through the fact that the vocal style can match with anything the instrumentation does. I did get to talk with the lead guitarist Bruno on a chord progression podcast episode, link in the description below, and I got to hear about how the band formed and a cool story about how Aaron Pauley did get featured on Light It Up. However, this is probably one of my second favorite, third favorite band to come out of this. The one thing I did like about this though was I was able to return the favor for my friend Chris. He got me into Stain the Canvas, I got him into Eline, so I'm going to call that even trade. The third band I'm going to talk about is a band called Deep as Ocean. This is the last of the Adam Ollie bands I'm going to get to really talk about because that's how I found out about them. He represents them. And when I take a look at them, they're a little bit different than the other bands that are on this list, and that's because their bass sound is based in modern metal. So you're gonna get this heavier metal sound. You're gonna get some electronic instrumentation in there as well, but then is their bass sound. Do not get me wrong, they do venture into that metalcore style every now and again, so they do fit on this list. Now I'll take a look at some songs. The first song is a modern metal bass song called Black Rose. Now do not get me wrong, we do get some metalcore instrumentation there as well, especially with faster drumming paces, but the bass is in hard, or more modern metal. They do mix some electronic styles in this song as well, and they better match with the heavy instrumentation on this one because they bring in that like chopped up style in the chorus, and the electronic influences kind of take that metalcore bite out of it and create rather a real modern metal marvel. When you take a look at the vocals on this one, they stay clean throughout the whole entire thing, which is a really great move because it creates this calming yet more modern metal feel. If I have to think of this as kind of like, like more like a modern metal version and a harder version of Learn to Survive by We Came as Romans, take a listen to their 8D version on Spotify of this song because it really sounds like this song is going around your head in a clock. Wear headphones. Now I have to go to Floating Anchor, and why I like this song is because this is metalcore inspired completely, because when you take a listen to the verses, it's going to be hard hitting, fast paced, down-tuned guitars, and it's going to have the unclean vocals, which just bring out that metalcore aspect in there. Where this song stands out though is how they transition from the verse to the chorus, because they keep that harder instrumentation in the transition, but they allow their vocalists to go clean with it. So that when you get to the chorus, which is more modern metal, more melodic in a sense, and that metalcore style, the clean vocals help transition into that. You get a real nice transition throughout the whole entire thing, and it just stands out as great songwriting. Now we're going to go to Oblivion, and this song mixes that metalcore and modern metal styles together, especially with electronic influence in there. They start us out with this, this heavier and a harsher tone overall, but the electronic sounds play so much more into that tone that it just works out completely and adds a lot more vigor to this song. They keep this intensity up and it transitions to, not as vigorous instrumental sound and cleaner vocals, but why they transition this so well, because they use that softer sound that kind of just adds more into it. You listen to the breakdown of this song, though, is one of the most underrated breakdowns because, well, no one knows about it, so go listen to it. Overall, Deep as Ocean really shows how to mix modern metal and metalcore together really well. And what I like about this one is they use those electronic influences to their advantage, and they use them to keep the songs that more consistent, harder sound versus some other bands in the genre like I Prevail. However, what I really like about Deep as Ocean is, again, with that fact that they have this modern metal base, they venture into metalcore as well, and they use those electronic influences to their advantage. But what they do is they let the song stay hard in the paint. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this. Have not been able to set up a podcast episode with them yet, but I'm hoping to. Fourth band I'm going to talk about is a band called Dead Like Juliet. I found out about them because they messaged me through Instagram asking me to basically review their stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to oblige on this because Italian Metalcore up to this point has not disappointed me. And Dead Like Juliet kept that coming. Their bass is definitely in metalcore. However, this band is a lot more experimental, where I've heard a lot of different songs. They go on a lot of different aspects and they try so many different things. So I was really stunned by that and how well it works out. I've seen a lot of other bands try and do a bunch of different styles at the same time, and it just didn't really work out all that well. Some have, a lot haven't. But with Dead Like Juliet, it sounds like that mixture of styles overall just kind of works out. Taking a look at a couple of songs, the band wanted me to listen to their song Rebellion, and I really like this one overall because it was really more focused in that hardcore punk sense. You listen to the vocal pair and it's like a mixture between Dead Kennedys and Rage Against the Machine. And the instrumental is really focusing with that metalcore kind of pacing, but with the hardcore punk more influence. So it's like you really get that punk sound there, but the bass of metalcore is still there. And this is probably my favorite of the bunch, and I'm really glad that this is the one they wanted me to listen to. Turn Your Flame into Water is really interesting because everything is stripped away. This is an acoustic song, and what I like about this one is the intensity is still there, especially in the same as Rebellion was, but what this one does is it turns that intensity into more emotional intensity. So the intense feels are still there. They're just completely different in the way you experience them. Turn your flame into fire. Wanderer is a very interesting one that goes with a much different kind of style of metalcore, which I will definitely explain a lot more detail with the last band. And what they do on this song is they have that more metalcore bass sound, especially with the harder and faster paced drumming, but the guitars are not as down-tuned. They have a lighter sound to them overall. And this shows how well the band can just blend their different styles together and different influences together, and how they can blend a lighter sound in with a heavier sound and really make something that still sounds fantastic. Now I'm going to go to Unwanted. I like the song a lot because it's like a bait and switch for the better, where I think it's going to go soft, then it goes into full hardcore metalcore glory. We're going to get that harder, fast-paced drumming style in there, and then the unclean backing vocals really match well with the unclean vocals that are just primary in this whole entire song. They just mix in so well. It's really weird, but it's really great. But what stands out even more is the guitar work, because they keep it down-tuned, but it's like a down-tuned shredding quality to it, so it just amplifies a lot more of what's going on in the song. It just really is a great mixture, I'm not gonna lie. Die with my heart! Overall, out of all the bands that I've talked about so far, Dead Like Juliet is the one that really stands out the most in terms of experimentation, because they take that metalcore bass, but they're able to try so many different things with it, and they're able to have a lot of different songs sound completely different while still keeping the same bass. It is incredible. I love the experimentation behind it, and I'm going to keep my eye on them going forward. I want to get them on the podcast, but we'll see what happens there, but I'm really going to keep my eye on them. Last band I'm going to talk about is Median. While trying to find bands for the chord progression podcast that are more emerging in the scene, these guys kept liking my stuff, so I'm like, okay, let's go take a look at them. I saw Italian Metalcore and I was like, ooh. What stuck out about this band overall was they did have that metalcore bass to it, but it was lighter and more accessible in the end, especially to the casual listener. And what I mean by that is when I took a listen to their music, for a consistent portion of the music, what they were able to do was they were able to have that metalcore bass with a faster, harder drumming in the background of the instrumentation, but the guitars were tuned consistently up higher than you would expect, so it had this lighter feel to the songs overall. So someone who's not really into the heaviness of everything will have a really easy time getting in with a band like this. And just that mix really stands out against something like Stain the Canvas, who's a lot harder in their instrumentation. This is kind of like the exact opposite in terms of the metalcore world. When it comes to their songs, When Autumn Falls is my favorite track of theirs so far. When I took a listen to it, it starts out with like an electronic, like Owl City kind of thing. You're like, this isn't gonna go well. But then they use a transition to their metalcore style where you listen to it. The drumming is heavy, the drumming is hard, but the guitars are consistently tuned higher. So you're gonna get that lighter metalcore feel to it where you're still gonna have the hard, fast pace, but it's not gonna be as brutal. It's gonna be more accessible overall, especially in terms of the casual listener. And when you listen to it, the unclean vocals really work out well in everything as well, the verses when they're going with that. When they go to the chorus though, the clean vocals really take charge in it, and the overall tone is slowed down. I mean, the drumming is not nearly as hard, the guitars stay the same tune. So what ends up happening is you get this transition overall of emotions, but they're able to transition so well because they have that lighter overall sound to their guitar work, and that's what really stands out about Median. One other song to talk about is Wings of the Broken, and when I take a look at this song, it sounds like it's going to be this like more electronic style feel to it with electronic upbeats and higher pitched guitar work, but then they go into this heavier metalcore style where you get that chopped up drumming style in there, just a do-do-do-do kind of style with down-tuned guitars. And I love this transition because it's that bait and switch that you really like when it happens, because you're like, oh, I don't really want the electronic, oh my god, this is good. The verses stay consistent with that harder metalcore feel as well, but then when they go to the chorus, they kind of bring in that lighter metalcore feel where the drums are going to keep that consistently heavy and fast paced. The guitar work's going to be a lot lighter in terms of tone, and the vocals are going to be clean. What I like about the transition there is because you're really seeing that Median can go with that heavier style of metalcore for the fans that like the heavy stuff, but then also go with a lighter style of metalcore that's really accessible for a lot of the people to get into. And they transition between it so well that it just stands out incredibly. And Median is one of those bands that you're really like, they're gonna be big. Well, actually, all these bands are gonna be big. Overall, Median is another band I'm really liking and looking forward to because the difference in what they do is they have this lighter metalcore style to them, but they don't depend on more electronic influences to really make that lighter sound. They just play off the guitar work on it. Unlike a band like I Prevail, where they usually use that electronic influence to really make more of that lighter metalcore sound at times, but this band doesn't do anything like that. When I got to interview them in the Chord Progression podcast, it was a great time. I can't wait to interview them again or see them again once I get a chance to. And I was blown away that my favorite song, probably their best song, When Autumn Falls, was the first song they ever wrote, because something like that just doesn't happen. I mean, it's rare. And I think they're going to catch lightning in a bottle once they get traction. So in the end, what do I think is going to happen with these bands? Well, 2020 has been a really good year for metalcore. If you take a look at a lot of the releases, a lot of metalcore bands have hit it out of the park. Take a look at bands like The Ghost Inside, Make Them Suffer, Lamb of God, Currents, Bury Tomorrow, August Burns Red. If you want to throw Trigger in there, you can. A lot of these bands are really taking charge, and metalcore is in a really good place right now. And these guys out of Italy, they're just absolutely fantastic. And they all have a completely different sound, whether it's the emo theatrical metalcore sound, the alternative metalcore sound, the more modern metal bass to it, the experimental metalcore sound of Dead Like Juliet, or the lighter metalcore sound of Median. When you take a look at all those, they just sound so different but so unique and so good all at the same time that I'm really surprised that not a lot of people are clamoring for these bands, especially right now, to listen to, because my god, they've got this fantastic sound overall. So I expect that, especially with how good metalcore is doing, and a little bit more, exposure, especially in a COVID world, just a little bit more exposure online, these bands can just grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. Not only that, but because of these bands, for my year-end awards, I've had to create a new category, because with all the great music that's already come out in 2020, and with these bands coming out, it was some like, I didn't want these bands to, get lost in the shuffle, so I created a new category of bands you might not know that had great albums. So it's like top 5 albums from bands you really didn't know. I don't know what I'm gonna call it, but these emerging bands, a lot of them are gonna be on there. Some might even jump over to the top 10 of the year list overall, but we'll see what happens. And it's just, I wanted to get these bands a lot more exposure because they're fantastic, and I think a lot more people should hear them because they have this great overall sound, and it's so different when you listen to all 5 of these bands. And I know there's gonna be more Italian metalcore bands, but I'm just scratching the surface here, and I found 5 great ones overall. Last but not least, how can these bands grow in the genre? Honestly, it's just getting more right now out there online, because we're in a COVID-19 pandemic, and just getting out there online to really expose them and their music to the rest of the world, because a lot of these bands, they need to be heard. Trust me on this. I'm trying to help out as much as I can because these bands are absolutely fantastic. Once COVID-19 ends and once the pandemic ends and travel's opened up, do you think I'm gonna go over to Europe and try and see every single one of these bands? That is the plan. I'm gonna try and see all 5 of them, even more bands that I've talked to in the past that aren't Italian metalcore, but these guys specifically, I want to see every single one of them. And man, I cannot wait for that to happen. I cannot wait to watch these 5 bands, not only them, but the overall Italian metalcore scene grow, because I think this is the next hotbed for metalcore, because it is just so good. So that's going to be it for me today. Thank you guys for watching. This is Kevin from the My Song of the Day Rock 2000 to Today YouTube channel. Links for every single band's streaming stuff and anything else, you can find them in the description below. Until next time, you guys know how I end this. Hat flip. Almost. I can't wait to see these guys live. So see ya!